que ya viene la revolución, para que se asustan será pa' mejor. Es el pueblo entero el que ya está gritando, ¡viva la revolución!
Iranian nuclear weapons development.
They have turned the island into a communist hellhole.
The experiment in Venezuela has failed completely.
La bestialidad imperialista. Bestialidad que no tiene una frontera determinada ni pertenece a un país determinado. Bestias fueron las hordas hitleristas, como bestias son los norteamericanos hoy, como bestias son los paracaidistas belgas, como bestias fueron los imperialistas franceses en Argelia. Porque es la naturaleza del imperialismo la que bestializa a los hombres, la que la convierte en fieras sedientas de sangre que están dispuestas a degollar, a asesinar, a destruir hasta la última imagen de un revolucionario, de un partidario de un régimen que haya caído bajo su bota o que luche por su libertad. Y la estatua que recuerda a Lumumba, hoy destruida pero mañana reconstruida, nos recuerda también en la historia trágica de ese mártir de la revolución del mundo, que no se puede confiar en el imperialismo, pero ni tantito así, nada.
عشقت که پر همت و عظمت عشاق همه یک به یک آماده رزمت در معرکه سنگی بگویید به صهیون آماده جنگی بگویید به صهیون در حمله ما یک اثر از دیو نماند یک خانه سالم به تل آویو نماند یک خانه سالم به تل آویو نماند ای لشگر صاحب زمان آماده باش آماده باش ای لشگر صاحب زمان آماده باش آماده باش بهر نبردی بی امان آماده باش آماده باش سعود آینه مکر یهوده چون روز فرج مهلکه آل سعوده آن روز که مکه شود آزاد چه زوده آن روز که مکه شود آزاد چه زوده اینها نفس آخر این آل سعوده اینها نفس آخر این آل سعوده این آل سعوده رمانان را بسپاسند این آل سعوده رمانان را بسپاسند از مهدی موعود همه غرق هراسند از نسل علی منتقم یار می آید ای اهل حرم را علمدار می آید ای اهل حرم را علمدار می آید ای لشگر صاحب زمان آماده باش آماده باش ای لشگر صاحب زمان آماده باش آماده باش بهر نبردی بی امان آماده باش آماده باش رمانان را شان رو بگوییم به فریاد با آل علی هر که در افتاد بر افتاد با آل علی هر که در افتاد بر افتاد ای لشگر صاحب زمان آماده باش آماده باش ای لشگر صاحب زمان آماده باش آماده باش بهر نبردی بی امان آماده باش آماده باش.
Long live the people's movements in Iran and the Syrian Arab Republic. Long live the people's movements in Lebanon, in Palestine, in Yemen, in Iraq, all over the world. What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 102, Unmasking Imperialism, Exposing Imperialist Propaganda in Mainstream Media. Today, the axis of resistance, the resistance axis, discussing the revolutionary movement of people's governments and people's uprisings in the Middle East, not supported by Israel, not supported by the Saudis, but organic, indigenous to the land. We're going to talk about the rising popularity of this anti-imperialist coalition, which includes the Islamic Republic of Iran, the Syrian Arab Republic, and resistance movements in Palestine, in Lebanon, in Iraq, Yemen, and Bahrain. We're going to debunk imperialist propaganda and Zionist propaganda about this movement, paying special attention to what all of your liberal friends are talking about, the women's uprising in Iran, the color revolution attempt that is failing, honestly, that is losing traction, losing support of people. And we're also going to discuss the revolutionary political and theological roots of this cross-border movement that is important for all anti-imperialists. And I'm talking to you guys in the West in particular, who are maybe on the fence about Iran or Lebanon and sitting on the fence, sitting on the sidelines, figuring out if you're going to allow liberals to shame you into supporting a regime change operation in Iran. We're going to talk about all that today. And joining us is the amazing Dr. Marwa Osman, journalist and host of PressTV's MidEaStream. Hands down, one of my favorite shows today. This is part of my Friday night ritual. I go to my ice cream shop. I get some ice cream. I come back. I watch MidEaStream, and I get my news about the Middle East and world events in general. A great political show about West Asia. She's a political commentator and analyst on matters of politics, economy, and security in the region. Dr. Osman serves as an assistant professor at the Lebanese International University, as well as Maaref University in Beirut, Lebanon. She is also a proud mother of 3 daughters. So she does a lot and does a great job of being a mother to 3 great daughters. A lot. I get tired just having a cat and just having a job. So I don't know how she does it. Please subscribe to her channel. Link is in the description, Dr. Marwa Osman's channel. And also follow her on Twitter. Link is also in the description as well. How's it going, Dr. Osman?
Please call me Marwa, and thank you for having me, Ramiro, on your show. It's a pleasure to be here to talk to you and to the audience and viewers who are on the other side of the world, to let them in on what's really going on in our region. It's a pleasure. I'm very happy to be here.
For sure. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And again, I want to tell you guys, compel you guys, check out her channel, check out her show. Unfortunately, PressTV has gotten a lot of censorship. At this point, it's harder to find PressTV, which is actually bringing great, insightful information and news and great values and great information, great people, humble people. But then you'll have all this other horrible stuff online, which we don't even have to get into. It's easier to find that than PressTV. So I really compel you guys to check out her channel, check out her show. A really amazing program. And it's all translated. It all has stuff in English for people like myself who don't speak Arabic or Farsi. And you can get really great information there. First, just to start off, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, like where you're speaking to us from now, and what got you into covering a lot of these people's movements in the region?
Well, first of all, I'm not in Beirut currently because every weekend I go up to my village, which is a bordering area. It's a triangle between Lebanon, Palestine, and Syria. And right now I'm at the farthest end of Lebanon, on both borders with the occupied Golan Heights with Syria and with the occupied Palestinian land of Haifa. And I am in Khiyam village in southern Lebanon. It is a scene of, it is famous for being a scene for the primary scene for Israeli aggression against Lebanon since the 60s, not from the 1982, since the 60s. The valley of Khiyam is evidence of how the resistance in my country was able to stop and eliminate the occupation from invading Lebanese land in the last war in 2006. You can find all evidence that you need on YouTube. And it's where we lost a very, very important part of our family, which is my kid's grandfather, who's my husband's father, in 1977 in the invasion of the Israelis to the town where he was a soldier in the Lebanese army, and he was bombed in his position and lost his life just when my husband was 5 days old. So it is very personal. It is in my family, as well as myself having witnessed the funeral of my own cousins in 2006, 6-year-old Maryam and 4-year-old Zainab, who were actually German Americans who were bombed by the Israelis, and the civilian convoy that the UN was trying to let them out from the southern part of Lebanon into the Beqa region and then to Beirut, but they were bombed despite the fact that the UN was taking them out, and despite the fact that Israel knew that this was a civilian convoy. So it's very personal for me. And at the same time, it is personal when it is about Syria, when it is about Palestine, because this is the Levant. We are all one people. We share the same basic DNA. We are from the same land. Historically, this part of the world is 20,000 years old. So it goes back, it's rich in culture, it's rich in civilization, and we are one people. We speak the same language, we have the same food recipes, we have the same traditions, we have the same religions with an S. Yes, it's not only a Muslim world here, it's a Muslim/Christian/Jewish world, but the Zionists have decided to rule us after the British occupation made way for them at the beginning of the 20th century, late 19th century, beginning of the 20th century, and brought them in as a colony part of Britain. They are foreign for the land. They are foreigners in language, foreigners in tradition, foreigners in everything, but they don't like to talk about it because they call it anti-Semitic, despite the fact that I'm a Semite, speaking about it and telling them that no, we don't have a problem with Jews, we have a problem with Zionists, a movement, a gang that ripped apart this region, that killed our ancestors, that stole our land, stole our resources, and kept killing us for decades. And even up until now, I was just having a conversation yesterday with one of my colleagues that we had a certain incident in Lebanon, in South Lebanon 2 days ago, with the UN peacekeeping soldiers, where they were shooting at people. So people shot back at them, and they ended up killing one man who's sadly an Irish. I know how much we are close to the Irish people, and we support the same resistance, but in the end of the day, that's a UN soldier. That's not an Irish soldier on my land. And we were just talking about that. I was saying, why do we have UN soldiers to begin with? The war ended in 2006. We haven't had that confrontation with the enemy since then. Why don't they open the gate, pass into Palestine, and save some Palestinians from being killed by Zionists on a daily basis? Children, women, elderly, youth. They kill everyone, anyone who stands in their way. It doesn't have to be a Muslim. It doesn't have to be a Christian. Look at what they did to Bethlehem. Bethlehem now just has 20% of its initial Christian residents because of the occupation. So I live in a land that was infested with colonialism, imperialism, which is why it came to me as a child. When I was on vacation in Lebanon, because I used to live outside Lebanon. And as a child, my first war, people say my first theater show, my first, let's say, dream park visit, my first war as a 9-year-old kid was the 1996, the April 1996 Grapes of Wrath operation by the Zionist Israeli occupation. And it was the first time I hear bombs, I hear bullets, I see people on TV getting butchered, and then in my neighborhood, buildings coming down. It was traumatizing. It was then when I stopped being a kid, I started becoming a woman at 9 years old. What do I mean? I mean like a woman who understands trauma and tries to deal with it, because at the end of the day, the next day, you're going to have to wake up and say, well, I'm just going back to school. This is what happened. And then again in 2006, when I was a shy sophomore student in college, and I was a non-hijabi, and I was trying to live up to whatever expectations my parents had for me and to whatever ambitions I have and dreams for myself. And then I chose to wear the hijab, and I wore the hijab on my own. No one forced me. It doesn't happen that way. We choose it. It's our body, our choice. And I decided that, and it was just 2 weeks before the 2006 war with the Zionist entity. And at that point, when I was 18 years old, and I saw the horrific results of imperialism, colonialism, and the unwavering support that Israel gets from everyone, especially with weaponry, top-notch weaponry that they try on us. We are guinea pigs. They test weaponry on us, on my people, to see if it's effective or not. And then other countries would decide to even buy it or not. This is what happened in 2006 when Russia had a deal with Israel to buy the Merkava, the tank, the Israeli tank, and they ended up not making the deal because the Merkava ended up, Khiam, my village right here, became known as the cemetery of the Israeli Merkava tanks, because God bless the resistance. We don't have a government. We do have an army, but it's so under weaponized. It's so under privileged. It's the Americans. The Americans yesterday gave us helicopters made in 1956.
Wow.
I'm not kidding. Google it. I'm not kidding. So thank God we have the resistance that made that possible, that ended any possible military contracts to be made with the Zionist entities. So this is us. We're guinea pigs. They bombs on us. And that time, what really clicked with me was the 2006 Qana massacre. It's the second Qana massacre. The first one was in 1996. The second one, 2006. The first one in 1996, when they bombed a UN facility that housed more than 200 Lebanese civilians who ran away and found refuge in that UN facility, and the Israelis bombed it, killing UN peacekeeper soldiers and more than 200 civilians. And then fast forward to 2006, the Qana massacre. I was displaced with my family. We had to leave the area we lived in because it was carpet bombed by the Israelis. It's called the Dahye in Lebanon. We fled like 20 kilometers away, so you could still hear everything, but we were relatively away from danger. And Qana massacre hit us at 4 a.m. in the morning. At 7 a.m. in the morning, we started seeing the footage, and it was horrific. It was horrific. People started leaving their houses, Ramiro, at 7 a.m. without anyone telling them. It was thousands of people in the streets, massing all down the way to downtown Beirut, protesting the horrific massacre that happened. At that point, I promised myself that wherever I go, whatever I do, whatever life takes me, I'm going to talk about this moment. I'm going to make my voice heard, and the people who lost their lives, I'm going to be their voice. And then I lost my cousins. And then years later, I met my husband, who is the father of my children and my partner in crime and in life. And we made it upon ourselves a promise that we will teach our children what it means to be resistance fighters, and we will educate them as who killed their grandfather, who stole their land, why we can't just go in our car and drive to Palestine the same way we drive to Syria. So we made it a promise to ourselves, and I took up on myself a career that shifted from business and management, which I sometimes still do as a consultant, but it shifted to media, because at that moment I decided that when I finish my BA, I'm going to have a master's degree in media. And I did my first, actually my first was in public sector. My second master's was in managing media institutions. And we don't have to talk about the third master's. I just then started a career in media in Al-Ittijah English news channel, which is an Iraqi news channel that started in 2009. And I was with them since the beginning. And then in 2015, and in parallel, I started also my PhD. And in 2015, I was about to give birth to my second child. So I decided to get away from the media a bit. But I kept following up the news. I became a regular guest on several news media outlets talking about the region and what's going on. Because at that time, also Syria, the global war against Syria started to kick off. And at the same time, Palestine was still ongoing because there was Gaza 2008, Gaza 2012, Gaza 2014. It's unending war against the Palestinians. So I kept myself indulged in that political / economic world. And then I came back in 2019 when I finalized my PhD. I said, well, I actually got a pretty nice offer from PressTV to produce my own show right here in Beirut, and it worked out. And I love the work that I do. It's my passion because it's what I promised myself to do, and PressTV gave me the floor to actually do it again. And here I am talking to you about it, and hopefully many of your guests and your viewers will listen carefully to what my people have to go through and the trauma that we see. And yet, at the end of the day, we just put that smile on our face because we believe that the people who are oppressed will be free. Justice will be served.
Most definitely. Thank you. So powerful. I thank you for sharing that story. I didn't know about that, your personal connection to it. And it's really infuriating to hear about that because you never hear information like that in the West. They teach you here that Israel is a bastion for democracy and is a land of the free in the Middle East. It doesn't have a constitution
nor borders. How is it a bastion for democracy without a constitution?
Right, exactly. And it's just crazy to me that people don't know about that. That's why it's important to share this information. And even the connection you were mentioning earlier, it's interesting because where my family's from in Honduras in Central America, we actually have the second largest Palestinian community outside in Latin America and the Caribbean. The first is Chile. And in Honduras, the Palestinian community, the overwhelming majority are from Bethlehem, where you mentioned that the majority are Christians and others who were displaced after the occupation, who came after 48, and also a few before, but a lot of them came after 48.
These are the direct descendants of Jesus Christ. Let that sink in, people.
It's so fascinating because the historical connections, like you said, they're the direct descendants of Jesus. And interestingly enough, when they go to our countries in Latin America and the Caribbean, many people from Palestinians and also Lebanese and Syrians have historically played a lot of revolutionary roles in movements, like the founder of the FMLN in El Salvador, which is right next to Honduras, which is a communist guerrilla movement in the 80s. He was actually Palestinian from Bethlehem as well. So it's just, really, really fascinating history, and it's all interconnected. It's a global struggle against Zionism. I think a lot of times people
on my visit in June 2022, I visited Cuba as part of a delegation of a gathering called the Global Gathering in support of the choice of resistance. And we met the ECAP, we met the Jose Marti Association, we met the Red Association, we met all the revolutionary associations, and we went to Casa de las Americas. It was an amazing, amazing trip. And to my surprise was that part of the revolution, generals in the army of the revolution, were Lebanese descendants. And I've never read about that before until I went there and visited the museums, and I was like, we have a part in that too. That's amazing. I was so happy, so proud. And I was amazed to see firsthand how the revolution still goes on and how powerful these people are. Don't believe anything you read in the media, anything. Go and visit for yourself. Do your own research, because the world out there is not how these elite try to show us it is and make us believe it is. And I learned a lot. I've read a lot of books, a lot of articles, a lot of research papers about Cuba and the Cuban Revolution and what happened after that, and what happened in the what they called the unfortunate decade that happened after the collapse of the Soviet Union, how they were able to stand up again. But seeing it, learning it firsthand from the people is very, very important. And what you said, I witnessed with my own eyes a couple of months back, and it was just breathtaking to me.
That's awesome. That's beautiful to hear. And most definitely, there's Lebanese all. If you go to anywhere in Latin America, there's Lebanese everywhere. And somebody, Stephen mentioned, yeah, Shafiq Handal. He was the founder of the FMLN. He was Palestinian. Very interesting stuff. What I want to do, Marwa, is I want to play a clip. This is from an Iran. So I'm speaking to you from Los Angeles, which they call Tehrangeles. There's so many pro-imperialist Iranians everywhere I go. I kid you not. There's billboards that say "Stand with Iranian women," and a woman burning a hijab, and all these very wealthy, quote unquote, Persians who are just
Someone
completely...
should ask them how they made their money and why are they not living in Iran. I bet you they will not answer.
Oh no, of course not. 100% not. And one of the people who they kind of float around is this woman. I think I forget how to pronounce her name, but I'm gonna play a clip of her talking. And I feel like there's kind of two heads within this pro-imperialist Iran regime change narrative. There's like the liberal bourgeois feminist narrative of like, burn the hijab. Women's empowerment means Western bourgeois feminism.
Come and free me, please. I am so oppressed. I need your freedom.
Right? Yeah, and then there's like the other strand of it, which is like the hard right neocon Netanyahu, like Zionist. We need to go in and bomb Iran, are the same, right? But they just have different appearances, different branding. So I want to play a clip. Kind of representing both, and then we'll get your response on the recent Iran riots that were taking place.
Mahsa Amini got killed by hijab police because she was wearing inappropriate hijab. For the Islamic Republic, hijab is a tool to control women and through women to control the whole society. For them, compulsory hijab is like the Berlin Wall. If we tear this wall down, the Islamic Republic won't exist because it's the main pillar of the Islamic Republic. Women have been pushing back compulsory hijab laws and all the anti-women laws in Iran. But this is the time that the movement gaining momentum. This is a women revolution. Clearly, women are in front line, removing their hijab, burning the headscarf, some of them showing their anger by cutting their hair. It's showing the way of protesting. Some men and women, shoulder to shoulder, they burn police cars. Why? Because for years and years, these police cars being the tool of oppressing women. This is the picture of a woman right now. She got killed. She got shot in the head. She got killed. There's another one. Oh, wait, I have to name them because here people say her name. Mahsa got killed. After Mahsa, Hannane got killed. Another Mahsa. My God, she is 21-year-old. Her name is Mahsa. There are many people getting killed. Iranian regime cutting off the internet and killing people in the street. This is my fear, that when Iranian women risking their lives, they're facing guns and bullets, then the rest of the world just legitimizing our murderers, welcoming them to Europe, to United Nations. My oppressors has a seat at the United Nations to monitor human rights and women's rights globally. My mom wears hijab. My mom never beaten up me and tell me, cover yourself. I'm not against her. I am against political Islam. I am against those who forced us to wear hijab. And that made Iranian furious. They are in the streets because they don't have any option. They don't have choice. A woman from Afghanistan, from Kabul, sent me a video to show her solidarity. I told her, shall I blur your face? You know what was her response? She said, don't. This is what the Taliban is doing to us. This is what the Islamic Republic is doing to us. They want to make us invisible.
You can see today what that regime amounts to. I mean, it is murdering its citizens. It's brave women who are coming out and fighting for their freedom. I'm sorry. No, I'm not an authoritarian.
And when it comes to Iran, you have argued all along that the Iran nuclear deal was a mistake. Former President Trump agreed with you. He saw that the U.S. pulled out of that deal. It's now in great jeopardy whether that deal will ever be revived. But in the meantime, Iran has built up its nuclear capacity. It's closer than ever to having a bomb. So how is Israel safer as a result of what you advocated?
The deal doesn't stop it. I mean, I described this in my book. I sent the Mossad to the heart of Tehran to pilfer the secret atomic archives of Iran. They brought it to Israel, and Hollywood couldn't even begin to describe this chase in the streets of Tehran against our agents who got the material out, got themselves out. And they brought the archive, the secret atomic archive of Iran, to Israel. And when we looked at it, we could see that they were cheating. They had, as early as 2003, had a secret plan to build 5, that's 20 years ago, 5 atomic bombs, Hiroshima-style bombs. And then they hid this program under civilian guise. But Iran cheats. And look, there is no way to stop them. You can sign 100 agreements with them. You would sign agreements with North Korea. It doesn't mean anything. Iran is the worst of all because it is a radical Islamic regime that is fundamentally opposed to our free way of life, our free societies, and calls and chants death to Israel, death to America. That's only going to be stopped, not by any agreement. It's going to be stopped by the combination of crippling economic sanctions and a credible military option. If you're not prepared to do that, don't hide behind the agreements. The agreements are not going to stop Iran. They merely pave Iran's path to the bomb with gold, with hundreds of billions of dollars that they use both to accelerate their nuclear program and also to foment terrorism and aggression throughout the Middle East and the world. You want to stop Iran? Stop it now.
There you have Satan Yahoo calling on the U.S. and the West to bomb Iran. And then you have, I forget how to pronounce her name. I always butcher it. But,
yes. I have one advice to Masi. Water that flower. It's not nice. Water it. Okay? It doesn't look nice. I have nothing else to say. That woman is a lying psychotic human. Her body language, that was scary and cringy. But and they're killing people. The Iranian police do not have weapons. I was in a meeting with the Iranian ambassador in Lebanon a few weeks back, and my question was, for the love of God, why doesn't your police have guns? And he said, it's a choice made by the people. Our police only have batons. They don't have guns. Hence why the police their throats were beheaded. Their throats were slit in the streets. They were lit on fire. No one died because they don't have bullets, because it's an Iranian decision at the higher level not to give police bullets. And he explained to me that Iran has 7 layers of security, and now they're just at layer 2. They don't need to go to layer 3. And explained a lot of issues because we don't see it in the media. We just need, and it's hard to translate a lot of the Iranian Persian media. We as PressTV, we try to do our best, but I mean, it's limited resources at the end of the day, and it's also limited reach because they're dropping us from satellites in Europe and North America and not allowing our websites to be seen, or just seizing our websites to begin with, which is all illegal, all against human rights. It's human rights violations. It's against freedom of speech. But I wanna mention something about, I mean, Netanyahu, the war criminal, who has in his neck thousands of civilians who he personally took part in massacring in Syria, Lebanon, and Palestine, and also in Iran. He can casually just drop the idea of him sending Mossad agents to Iran. What are they like? What like buying something from Amazon and sending delivery men? You're sending Mossad agents to Iran, and you don't want Iran to be your enemy? I mean, who the hell are you? Who gave you the permission to be the global police when you are a fascist, criminal, terrorist, terrorizing people ever since you opened your eyes in this world, ever since you decided that you want to fly back from the United States of America and become an Israeli, and then take my land, kill my people, and incarcerate the rest. I mean, he speaks about Iran is near having a nuclear. Israel has more than 200 nuclear warheads. What is he talking about? And they refuse to be part of the non-proliferation treaty. What is he talking about? And it just goes casually in the media. And he says, oh, It is a regime that is killing its own people in the streets. Man, on a daily basis, you are killing Palestinians. You are even killing your own people who decide not to become part of the army and not to kill Palestinians. You either cancel them or kill them. What are you talking about? This is very funny. And at the same time, it's infuriating because the media shows you whatever it wants. And that old lady who's supposedly an anchor listening to him just does this with her head and agrees with everything that he's saying as if it's in what world does an official go on live international TV and say you could do treaties with North Korea and you could do treaties with Iran, but it won't work, you have to bomb them, and then no one reacts? In what world? Only in the world of Zionists and war criminals. He dare to talk about women and the women rights movement and the brave and courageous women of Iran when he took part in the killing of hundreds of Palestinians, hundreds of Lebanese women, whether killing them in the streets in South Lebanon or incarcerating them in the Khiam detention center, in the there was another detention center in it was called Ansar, the Ansar detention center, but Khiam detention center, where I live right here, was bombed by the Israelis in 2006 so they can erase their criminal record. I cannot begin to tell you what they did with women. They used to hang them naked outside. They used to make them go down on their knees and then make them just rub their knees to a cement to go uphill in order to torture them to get information from them. They used to do nasty, nasty issues. I'm sorry to say, but they used to electrocute. They used to put them on electricity and electrocute. It's not going to come out. The word is just too.
Oh, you got it. Yeah, electrocute. Yeah.
Electrocute them in ways that are embarrassing, that are harassment. Yeah. I can't even. It's un-Islamic for me to give you more explanations. But the issue is, you're talking with the surviving colony right here in the heart of the Middle East that is still incarcerating people, that is still killing women and children, that is still killing the youth of Palestinians and the youth of the Lebanese, and still bombing Syria on a weekly basis. They bomb a sovereign state and no one says a word. Can you imagine if Mexico sends drones on a weekly basis and bombs Colorado or Utah or LA, for example, and then returns and then no one says a word? Or can you imagine that Mexico invades the U.S., despite the fact that the southern part of the U.S. is actually Mexico, but let's not go there. Let's say that Mexico actually tried to invade. It flew planes and dropped cluster bombs that up until now, the UN is trying to get the maps of those cluster bombs so no more civilians can die. And less than a year ago, a 12-year-old boy died in Nabatiyeh, which is like more than 50 kilometers from the border, because of a cluster bomb that was in the field next to his house. He was playing with a football and he was killed by that cluster bomb 12 years later after the 2006 war. Why? Because Israel does not give the maps to the UN so the UN can give it to the Lebanese authorities so we can clear the areas for the civilians. We are talking about this kind of entity. It's not even a regime. It's not a government. It's not a state. It's a colony, and it's run by an entity which is a very close. Actually, it's a puppet in the hands of the Americans and the British regime as well. It's not the other way around. It is a colony for them. They are allowing it to exist. When they say stop, it will stop. No, Israel does not run Washington. It's the other way around, because it's Zionism that runs the world. It's not Israelis that are running Washington. It's Zionism that's running everyone else. And we have a colony for Zionism right here in our region. So this is basically what I can comment about this video. But it's really very hard for me to fathom the thought that people in the West can watch like a couple of these videos and say, oh, a revolution. I mean, if you go to Coachella, you have more people than this. I'm not saying I'm serious. I'm just trying to give a live example of it. Like, I'm not underestimating that some people have righteous demands in Iran, and they have every full right to demand whatever they want. But when you go towards terrorism and violence, you no longer a protest. You're a terrorist. When you slit the throat of your own flesh and blood This is your nation. You slit the throat of a police officer who doesn't even have a weapon to kill you with. This is terrorism. This is terrorizing. When you have insurgents being infiltrated into the border of Iran, between Iran and Iraq, weaponry. What is this called? This is called an imperialism form of war, using insurgents in the country or in the country neighboring to it, to try and insinuate and to trigger mass killings and to trigger basically a regime change war in a country that is sovereign, that saw a lot of its youth die to gain back its independence in 1979. People talk about the era of the Shah as if it was a golden era. The man killed his own people. The man people in Iran didn't have running water when the Shah was in power, because he didn't care. He was just stealing the wealth of the Iranians. I mean, look how Iran was before the revolution and after it. 90%, that's a 90% of the Iranian public was illiterate during the Shah times. And when the revolution came again, it's now 99.9% fully educated, free healthcare, free education for everyone. You have the right to housing, you have a right to heat, you have a right to basically everything. It's a democracy. And people say, this law should not exist. Okay, I can hear you. I can debate with you about that. But how about this law be debated in the Iranian parliament and then voted upon? And if the people don't like that voting, in the next round of elections, they could choose other people who could represent them and do and amend the laws that need to be amending. You don't agree with that? Well, tell me, how did you feel on January 6, 2022? And then I'll understand what you're trying to tell me. Understand that you are basically uneducated. You are ignorant about the fact that this people has its own nation, its own tradition, its own laws, and you have to respect it whether you like it or not, because other nations respect your laws despite the fact that it is the largest per capita incarceration in the world. Talking about the United States of America. Look at your system before trying to even criticize other people's systems. That's what you should do. Look in the mirror. Look at how you're living. Impoverished, no economy. They crush you with debt. They crush you with police brutality. And then you have the audacity to talk in the voice of the people of the region, especially the women of the region. Honey, I had a fight with my parents at the age of 18 to wear the hijab because, hello, they didn't want me to wear the hijab because in Lebanon, we don't have equal treatment. Women who are hijabis don't get equal benefits. They don't get equal work opportunities because we're hijabis. We're supposed to flaunt our hair and show our skin to get a job. No, sorry, I'm not going to accept it. I had a fight with my parents and I stood by my choice. None of my sisters are hijabis and it's their own free will. But this is my choice. I want to be a hijabi. I want to tell people from far away that I'm a Muslim woman because I have borders. I don't shake hands. I don't get cozy with foreign men. And when I say foreign men, that includes my brother-in-law. He's not supposed to see me without my headscarf. He's not supposed to shake my hand. He cannot sit near me because only my father, my brother, my uncles, and my husband can actually see the woman that I am. And I'm very happy with it. Why? Because I see it as protective for me. If other women don't, it's their free choice. So please, don't mansplain to us what we should do with our lives and with our bodies and with our religion, and stop calling it political Islam. How would you feel if I called Zionism political Judaization?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
What would you do to me? Because that's the same. Or if I say what's going on in the US, it is political Christianity. What does that have to do with anything? You could be a Christian. By the way, you could be a Christian and go every Sunday to church and see Virgin Mary, who looks like me more than looks like you, and then come back from church and criticize my choices, my views, and call me a towelhead, by the way. Oh my God, the number of people on Twitter that call me a towelhead. And that's, thank you. Do you like my towel today? It's a bit bold. How do you deal with these people on a daily basis? I don't know, because I don't have the patience to do so. But at the end of the day, I need to portray, I can imagine, but I need to portray to the world, especially those who want to hear, who want to listen, what we go through on a daily basis. I mean, they're talking about this movement, but they never talk about the sanctions that have killed women, children with chronic diseases in Iran since 1979 because of the unilateral punitive measures. They are not cold sanctions. They are unilateral punitive measures. Syria, you know that today, one of the major bus transportation companies in Syria decided to shut down. We're talking about a country that's 16 times bigger than Lebanon. They shut down. They used to take people from one governorate to another. That's like, let's say, I think Syria is as big as California, if I'm not mistaken. So it's imagine if you wake up tomorrow in California and the biggest bus transporting company decides to shut down. Why? There's no more diesel fuel to operate. Why? Because the Americans are occupying all the gas and oil fields of the Syrians and not allowing them to use their own resources. And they're not allowing them to buy from outside their borders. They don't allow any shipments to arrive. They don't allow any land trucks to take oil. They bombed it last month and they killed three soldiers, Syrian Arab Army soldiers on the border between Iraq and Syria. Why? Because it was a convoy of diesel fuel that was going to the governorates of Syria to help people in this cold get the heat that they need in their houses, to help people to get transportation from one governorate to another. So it shut down today. They don't have any more diesel. And we're talking about Syria that has zero debt to the outside world.
And that's the problem. They want the Middle East to be indebted. They want women to be on OnlyFans all over the region. They want to promote commercialized culture. They want everybody to be drinking Coca-Cola and watching the Kardashians. And the biggest threat to...
I'll drink my tea.
Yeah.
I'll just watch my debke, which is a Lebanese
of course.
dance. And
I'll
do my religious tradition, and I live in the comfort of my own house without any profanity, without being looked upon as an icon, as a thing. No, thank you. In my world, I am respected because I'm a woman. And I'm not afraid to say I'm a woman here. Not like you guys. Now, women are afraid to say they're women or they will be transphobic. No, I'm a woman. I'm respected. I know very well my place and my freedom. And I've seen the world, but I'm never going to the United States of America. Don't get me wrong. They will. I don't know what they'll do at the airport. Look what they did to Marzia Hashimi. And she's an American Iranian. They basically incarcerated her for 13 days without any charge. They put her in a federal prison without any charge. Can you imagine what they would do to someone like me?
No, it's insane. And for me, honestly, at this point, Marwa, like I view the U.S. and Israel as bastions of Satan, of evil in the planet. There's a political and economic realm, and then there's a spiritual realm. And it's not until you actually understand. Like I recently, started. I've recently finished the Quran, and I read Surah Al-Baqarah, and it talked about like evil, like what is the nature of evil and deception, and like how Satan is like this great deceiver who inverts reality and makes good evil and evil good. And for me, Israel and the U.S. Really represent that. But what I want to do before you move on, I want to play a clip. This is from a so-called progressive media outlet here in the U.S. A lot of soy latte liberals love this media outlet. It's called Democracy Now! I'm sure you guys have heard of it. Amy Goodman, who's a big-time liberal Zionist, she has this segment on Syria. So I'm going to play this clip and just get your reaction to some of the propaganda, the talking points against President Assad and the Syrian Arab Republic that defeated Daesh and all reactionary forces. So I'm going to play this and we'll get your reaction.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Nermeen Sheikh. This week marks 11 years since the start of the war in Syria. The fighting has killed hundreds of thousands of people and left a nation devastated. Half the country's 22 million residents were displaced. Today, 60% of the population, some 12 million people, are facing hunger. The war began as an uprising against Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, who responded with brutal force, but it evolved into a multifaceted war involving the Islamic State, Russia, the United States, Turkey, Iran, and other countries. Earlier this week, the United Nations said Syria is teetering on collapse. Many Syrians say the devastating images seen in Ukraine suggest Russia is using the same tactics now as it did in Syria. We're joined now by Waad al-Khatib. She is a Syrian activist and filmmaker, award-winning director with Edward Watts of the critically acclaimed documentary country for Sama. Earlier today, she took part in a protest outside the Russian embassy in London to demand that Russian forces stop bombing hospitals. In fact, you head an organization. Talk about its name and the significance of what's happening in Ukraine and how you connect it to what happened to your country, Syria.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us here. I mean, as you just mentioned, what's happening today in Ukraine is something really coming across like what we've been talking about in the last 11 years from the start of the Syrian revolution. It's just very sad and interesting, really, actually, to hear all this conversation about no-fly zone, the armed, what other countries can do, and just to take one step back and think about what's happening. It's not about Ukraine. It's not about Syria. It's about Russia and what they can and they are capable to do.
And what can you talk? You mentioned, of course, as we did too, that this month marks the 11th anniversary of the war in Syria. First of all, you've insisted that the war not be called a civil war, as many still refer to it as. So could you explain why? And then second, what the humanitarian situation in Syria is now like. 60% of the population now reportedly facing hunger, with the average price of food higher than at any time in the last 9 years.
Yeah, I think what we are going through now is 11 years of what we call it revolution in Syria. What it was happening on the floor was revolution, was like on the ground. Thousands of Syrians were protesting in 2011, trying to end like Assad control of Syria, corrupted system, like a whole of like crimes was happening and was still happening until today. I refused, as so many Syrians, to call it a civil war because it's not a civil war. It's not Syrians from different religions or like groups are fighting each other. It's a power, it's the regime supported by Russia, Iran, Hezbollah, which surprisingly is kind of what's happening today in Ukraine. It's an invention as it is now in Ukraine. And I was so happy to start also like see people and journalists and people reporting this at not like stop war in Ukraine. It's not stop war, it's stop Russia. And that's a huge difference in even how we deal with these people, how we react to what's happening. The situation today in Syria after 11 years is like very, very, very bad.
I can tell Marwa has a lot to say already just by the expression on her face. It's insane. This is the so-called left in the U.S. Like, this is supposed to be the bastion of anti-imperialist media and news in the U.S. But this key player of the axis of resistance, you know, the Syrian government, revolutionary government that is in solidarity with oppressed peoples around the world, is being attacked so hard, in particular by the Western left that supported the so-called Syrian revolution. What are your thoughts on some of the comments that were made?
Let's begin with how the VO, the voiceover that Miss Democracy Now! Was reading. With its fast pace, it's the way it's narrating the events as if one can never even stop to think about the numbers or the cause of how this happened. This is what I teach my students at the university when I teach them radio, TV, news. She speaks about the matter and just throws numbers without telling us how this started. If it's a civil war, how did the other group get their hands on weapons? If it's suffering economically, why they are suffering economically, and who is actually suffocating them with the Caesars Act? And when she says that it's hundreds of thousands of people who have died, she doesn't say that they were killed by ISIS. She doesn't say that there's a Turkish occupation to the northern part of Syria. There's an American occupation to the northeastern part of Syria, that the Americans also have bombed and killed people. She doesn't even mention that, for example, the Americans in 2017 bombed a mountain in Syria called Athurda mountain, that's Thurda, Athurda mountain in Syria, where more than 200 Arab army soldiers, Syrian Arab army soldiers, were situated to start an offensive against ISIS, Daesh, The Americans took their bomber planes and bombed the Syrian Arab army so Daesh would advance and the Syrian Arab army would be able to stop them. She's talking about Russia. Oh, Russia, the bad guy, is bombing Ukraine. She doesn't talk about the woman, the Syrian supposedly director. She doesn't talk about 2014 till 2022 bombing of the Donbass, more than 13,000 civilians. I bet you not one American even knows where Ukraine is, but not one of them even, I'm talking about Americans that actually buy this kind of mainstream media, but I bet you they have never even heard of the Donbass region. They've never even heard of the president of the Luhansk Republic who was murdered, assassinated in his own building, in the elevator of his building. They killed him. The Americans, the CIA killed Alexander, the president of I don't want to say his family name because I might say it wrong, the president of the Luhansk Republic, and I had the honors to have an interview with him via Skype in 2015. You can find it. I think they removed it from YouTube, but it's found archived on other websites. And they don't speak. I mean, they never mention how NATO has stating that the Ukraine should be part of NATO, that NATO and the US have been part of the Ukrainian regime since the color revolution in Ukraine happened, and it basically a coup happened to remove the elected government, the democratically elected government in Ukraine. They don't talk about that. They just talk about the reaction of Russia. Again, imagine if Canada woke up, became your enemy, despite the fact that they share a culture, history with the United States of America. They woke up and decided, we want to have camps for Iran on the border with the US. And what would happen then? What happened to Cuba when Russia decided to put missiles in Cuba? What happened? Why is it okay for the US to do it, despite the fact that the Cubans has every right to have military agreements with any country they like, because it's called sovereignty. That's what the US doesn't understand. Despite that, the US can do it, but Russia cannot. I'm not defending anyone here. I'm just placing the facts for the people to recognize how it's okay here, it's not okay here because we're not doing it. It's okay for the Americans to loot and steal Syria's oil resources and to occupy the Conoco oil fields and the Al Umar oil fields with a proof from the former 45th president of the United States of America saying we are there to protect the oil. This is what he said, and he was telling the truth because he was too dumb to actually cover it up. That's from the president saying it on his own, despite the fact that you have Hillary Clinton's emails that says we supported and we trained and we armed Daesh, known as ISIS in the Western world. You have also the voice of, I think her name is Nancy in Ukraine.
Nancy Pelosi?
No, not Pelosi. No, that's another witch. What's her name?
Sorry, yeah, wrong one.
I'll remember her name. But she's in charge during the Obama administration. She was in charge of the Ukraine file, and there is a leaked audio for her yelling at the then president of Ukraine and telling him that he did not do what the US asked him to do because they became a puppet in the hands of the Americans. And that's what America wants. It wants to take control of the decision-making process in countries like Syria, like Ukraine, not because they are fan of wars, but because they are fan of resources. They are a fan of economy. They are a fan of debt. They are a fan of basically putting countries in shackles called the debt to the United States of America when the economy is the hands of the United States of America. But if you have a government that is not aligned with the foreign policy of the United States of America, then we see regime change, and then we see economic sanctions, and then we see war, and we see suffering until that nation says, khalas, in Arabic means enough, I'm done. Just do whatever you want. Syria refused to do so. Iran refuses to do so. Lebanon, I was laughing when she dropped the name of Hezbollah, when she said Russia, this is what Russia and Iran and Hezbollah is doing. Woman, in 2015, I was about to die for the upbeat time in my country when I had two of my daughters a 2.5-year-old in the back seat, and a 5-month-old in the back seat when Daesh, ISIS, your best friends who you call revolutionary rebels, Miss Director from Syria, they were bombing Beirut. What does Beirut have to do with Damascus? They were bombing Beirut. They were killing my people in Beirut because Hezbollah was vocally supportive of the Syrian Arab Republic, the Syrian president, and the Syrian Arab army. Not until late 2013 that Hezbollah was involved to protect Lebanon because ISIS was already inside of the Lebanese border in the Beqa region, especially in Arsal. They were bombing Beirut. I was about to die. Thank God I took a parallel street to the street that actually saw a twin bombing in 2015 in Beirut suburbs. And I couldn't hear the explosion. I just felt it. I had my windows rolled up. I felt it. I didn't hear it. I was so close. I did not hear it. I did not hear it. I just felt the wave. The car we were stuck in traffic. The car just moved as if it was an earthquake. People in the streets were shocked, in shock mode, turning around to just understand what was happening. And then we saw the smoke rising. I was in panic, mama bear mode, trying to jump over traffic to get to my house to protect my children from Daesh, who you call rebels. And you want to talk about Hezbollah, who defended me, protected my family, my community against the murderous, the most barbaric, murderous gangs ever to be supported and funded and trained by any Western imperial power in my country against my people, who used to hold the Quran in one hand and then slit the throat of the people in the other. Know who did that? The people who did that were the enemies of the Prophet Muhammad. They would kill Muslims and then hold the Quran and say, we're Muslims, you are not allowed to kill us. Honey, we're no longer in that area. We will kill whoever tries to approach us, whoever tries to put us under that kind of danger again. What do you want? Where do you want me to stand when I see my children being killed? You know how many times I had to endure explosions in Beirut when I was at my job. I used to finish as an anchor of news at 10 p.m. every night. And I had my first child in 2012. And the bombing started in 2013 and they kept going till 2015. I lost track of counting them. They're more than 12. And you know how many times I had to sit? I was like 20 kilometers away from my house, and to hear that explosion and then keep thinking, is my child okay? Are my parents alive? Did they feel it? Did she hear it? Was she sleeping when that happened? All that trauma that goes through, and you want us to support the US, Israel, Daesh, Turkey? You want us to stand against the righteous people of Syria who kept defending their land despite the fact that 82 countries, Democracy Now! said the US, Russia, Iran, and several other countries, a coalition of 82 countries were bombing Syria. Why? Why were they bombing Syria? And why were they bombing strategic areas where the resources are? Why were they bombing the airport and the port? Why were they bombing the silos where you keep the wheat? Isn't that to starve the public? Can you tell me how a dumb idiot like a soldier for Daesh would understand that he should go and bomb the windmills and bomb the silos for wheat, if not an intelligence situated in the Al-Tanf area, which is the triangular area in the southeastern part of Syria? It's a triangle between Iraq, Syria, and Jordan, where the CIA resides and where the US Army resides. But there is an intelligence base there, also in northern Jordan, that is in direct contact with these people, that airdrops aid to those people. Why is there only Daesh in the pockets that are around the US occupation, but no longer in Palmyra or in Aleppo or in Dar'a or in, for example, Deir ez-Zor? Why? Why are there only Daesh in areas controlled by the US in Iraq, in Anbar, for example? Has it not been for the Popular Mobilization Forces of Iraq? Iraq would have put Baghdad in if I'm not mistaken, 2017, Baghdad was threatened for the Tabaqa and Haditha Dam in Mosul to be exploded, and then Baghdad would be flooded. Has it not been for the Popular Mobilization Units led by martyr Qasim Soleimani and by martyr Hajj Abu Mahdi al-Muhandis, Baghdad would have been flooded and terrorism would have wrecked the streets of Baghdad. Has it not been for those people who, with a green light by Trump, Zionists and Americans killed while on a diplomatic visit to Iraq? That's terrorism. That's equal killing the Minister of Defense of another country. And people say that Soleimani was a terrorist. Wash your mouth with 90% alcohol, because he was the head and the general that is actually running the show against Daesh and running the show against US imperialism and Zionists, who by all means are afraid of Iran because it's the main supporter for Hezbollah. Hezbollah, the only Arab group that was able to not only liberate its land, but eliminate the threat of the occupation from every Lebanese citizen, even the citizens who innately hate Hezbollah because they are innately Zionists. Even those are protected because Israel can no longer they can no longer get their planes above Lebanese airspace because Hezbollah threatened, and they showed them that they can actually execute their threats. They can no longer send in their drones, their bomber drones, because Hezbollah dropped a lot and sent in its own into the Palestinian territories. Why are we not allowed to have the 10th amount of weaponry that the Israelis have? Don't you say that it's their right to defend themselves? It's our right to defend ourselves. Why do you see us defending ourselves, or the Iranians, for that matter, or the Iraqis, or the Syrian Arab army defending its own nation to be something against the norms or against, what do you call, the international rule-based order?
The international rules-based order, yeah. Yeah.
I could tell them to shove it, but I'm a Muslim woman.
Most definitely. Wow. Amazing. And you hit on a key word that I want to quickly kind of finish off with, because I know your time is limited as well, Marwa. But you talked about Daesh, and what in particular the Wahhabis, who are led by Saudi Arabia and the Gulf states, who are puppets of Western imperialism and have also targeted in Yemen in particular the Ansar Allah movement and just all Yemeni people in general. We know about Saudi Arabia's war against the Yemeni people, which unfortunately also doesn't even get that much attention. There's so much horrible atrocities that are taking place in Yemen, and the world never hears about it. So I want to play a clip. This is a Saudi official a few years back trying to blame the crisis in Yemen on Ansar Allah, which is a resistance movement in Yemen. And then we'll get your reaction to this as well.
The United Kingdom and your other allies have called for the immediate resumption of UN aid flights to Yemen and the opening of the port. What is your reply?
The airports in Yemen and the seaports in Yemen are being opened with the exception of Hodeidah. We have said that we will suspend all operations of these ports after the ballistic missile hit Riyadh International Airport. We have said that these measures are temporary in order to make sure that we have mechanisms to prevent the smuggling of weapons and missiles that can be launched at Saudi Arabia from Yemen. And within a matter of days, we reopened the ports, and now we are adopting certain procedures to minimize the possibility that Iran can smuggle missiles or missile technology to its allies, the Houthis.
The UN has said every day is a day too long. They need the main Red Sea port, Hodeidah, opened immediately.
We have a number of seaports open along the Red Sea.
But they're not as big as Hodeidah.
We have increased, we're working on increasing the capacity at those ports. We have other plans for making other ports available to Yemen. I think the issue of Hodeidah, the Houthis destroyed the cranes that were at the port of Hodeidah. The Houthis charge money ransom for every ship that docks in Hodeidah. The Houthis then proceed to steal the humanitarian assistance that is offloaded in the port of Hodeidah, and they proceed to sell it in order to fund their war machine. They don't distribute it to the people who need it. So for some reason there has been
accusations too that your bombardment as well has caused damage at Hodeidah.
That's not correct. We did not bomb the port of Hodeidah. The Houthis destroyed the cranes from the ground, and everybody knows this. There has been this this myth built around Hodeidah, and it's taken on this proportion that is out of reality. There's no sense of reality to it.
What about the reality that the United Nations says that 7 million Yemenis are at risk of famine if the main ports and the airport in Sana'a in northern Yemen, under Houthi control, is opened? Does that worry you?
The airport of Sana'a, what worries me is this misinformation and outright disinformation that is being pushed and that is being repeated and that is being sold as truth. The airport of Sana'a was never closed to humanitarian flights. The flights go in. The reason we have the reason we have starvation in Yemen is because the Houthis lay siege on cities and towns and prevent assistance from coming in.
So basically, this Saudi official guy is blaming everything on Ansar Allah and Yemen. Marwa, can you
the Hodeidah
part,
okay, because I switched internet connections and to 3G because the connection here is the Wi-Fi is limited, so I tried to very fast to switch, but I was able to hear that, oh no, it's not because we bombed the airport and we stopped any flights to come in and out of Sana'a that people are in famine. You lying piece of horse manure. I mean, the issue is the amount of money that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has since 2015, since March 15, 2015, has paid to kill Yemenis, to make them submissive to the Israeli and American decision-making and to their order and will, can basically end poverty in not only in the world, in 2 planets. And I'm talking about huge amounts of money. The effort that the Saudis have put into damaging Yemen, if that effort was put into actually sitting on a table and discussing differences, if there are any differences, to discuss those differences and get to any sort of solution, because it's been, 7 years now, we're going into the 8th year, it would have saved them a lot of money. It would have turned Saudi Arabia into utopia. Saudi Arabia, the country that has mass poverty, that has a lot of unemployment, that is sitting on basically the 2nd biggest reserve of oil and gas in the world, just wants to control the biggest oil and gas reserve in the world, which is not Venezuela, it is Yemen. If you go back 2009, 2012, and you see reports on Al Jazeera itself reporting about Yemen, especially the northern and eastern part of Yemen, how they reported about the amount of what they call the black gold, which is the oil that's found in Yemen, you could get numbers that you cannot even imagine. If you go back to reports about companies like Hint, which is a British company that used to operate in the 80s in Yemen, stealing, looting Yemeni oil and gas, and see their reports, you can understand why the entire world wants to grab Yemen. Yemen is one of the very few Arab countries that have all seasons. Saudi Arabia doesn't. Saudi Arabia is 90% dead desert. Yemen is one of the very few Arab countries that have waterways on different areas. They have the part of the Indian Ocean. They have part of the Red Sea. It's a waterway from the Mediterranean into the Red Sea, into the Bab al-Mandeb, which gives them way basically from Yemen, exactly, that gives them way from the east all the way to the west, which is the easiest, fastest route for shipments, which is why we are seeing now at Bab al-Mandeb, at that strait, U.S. soldiers on the ground for the first time in the Yemeni, the global war on Yemen, and Ansarullah are hinting that they are ready to bomb them if they don't leave as fast as possible. And I pray for that day. But to talk about what's really going on in Yemen, look at that vast, beautiful country that has Oman and Saudi Arabia and the Red Sea and also the Gulf of Aden, which is open to the Arabian Sea and then to the Indian Ocean. That area not only is vast with resources, it is vast with culture, and it's vast with a history that has never allowed any occupier to set foot in Yemen. This is what the Saudis did not learn. If they have learned from history, they wouldn't have got stuck in the swamp of Yemen. The Turkey has a very old folk song that talks about Yemen. It talks about how Turkey sent 77,000 men to occupy Yemen and only 7,000 returned. And it's very famous. You can also Google search that song, and that's part of the Turkish traditional culture, because Yemen has been known that it is a very, very welcoming country, but not to occupiers, not to aggressors. This Saudi man, before I talk about his approach about Yemen, as an American, doesn't it look a bit funny for you that a man with the igal, with that traditional garment of Saudi Arabia, is talking perfect English?
Yeah.
Why
That's pretty weird.
Yeah. While you have Yemenis who are very, by the way, Yemenis, and you have Yemenis, Syrians, and a bit of Iraqis, but basically Syrians and Yemenis, they are the peoples who speak the perfect Arabic language, because up until now, they didn't allow colonialism to infiltrate their system of education. They are still intact with their Arabic language. I mean, a 7-year-old Yemeni can talk better Arabic than me, because I was not born and raised in Lebanon. That's the first mistake that my parents did. Then the second mistake was that I didn't work on myself to educate myself better in the Arabic language, which was why I'm doing it to my kids. I'm learning it through my kids as well in the process. What I mean to say is they are very much Arabian, meaning they have the Arabian culture, the language, they have the traditions. And Arabs are very well known to be very welcoming nations. They are very hospitable, but at the same time, they are very dangerous warriors, because they defend their land and their people and their women. Because we say we are protecting our basically, it doesn't have a translation into English. It's called ard. They protect their ard. Ard means the chastity of our women and our mothers and because why will an occupier come and see them or infiltrate their routines or their daily life or their lifestyle? They are ready to die for this, which is no longer found in the West, just saying. Yep. But to begin with, Yemen, since 2015, you can learn more about the revolution that happened in the 50s and the 60s, and how since the 70s the Saudis, with the help of the Americans, were trying to take over Yemen. But the revolution in Yemen is way more powerful than any other occupier or aggressor. But now, in this day and age, if we see how Yemen, the Ansarullah movement, which is not the Houthis are just one tribe of the Ansarullah. Thousands of tribes are part of the Ansarullah. When we see how the Yemeni armed forces, supported by the Ansarullah movement, has retaken historic land. They even retook historic land in Saudi Arabia, which is historically Yemeni. Jizan and Najran are historically Yemeni land. Houthis, entre parenthèses, or the Ansarullah, they retook land of their own people and liberated them. Hodeidah was never able to be taken or brought down to its needs, and it's one of the most important ports which the United States of America and Saudi Arabia are not allowing aid shipments, even UN searched and approved aid shipments to enter into Hodeidah port to try and help the suffering of the Yemeni people because of the massive basically famine that's going on in the country. Because Yemen should not have a famine. It's a big, vast country, but when you don't allow certain shipments to arrive, it means you're not allowing the industrial business factories to maintain its machinery. You're not allowing them to actually reach their land for agriculture. You're not allowing medication. When people are sick, they are having diseases that died 100 years ago, like cholera and measles, because of no vaccination, because Saudi Arabia is not allowing even medical aid to arrive to Yemen. When you have people suffering on that level, then you will see that agriculture will go down, the economy will go down. When you suffocate the people, they will no longer have the means to be able to survive. And that's what's happening in Yemen. But the Yemenis are so resilient to a point that they are still alive. They are still surviving. They even developed their own homemade ballistic missiles that go more than 2,000 kilometers. They were able to make the UAE pull back with its Al-Amaliqa. It's called, I think it's called the Giants, the Giants Battalion from Shabwa in Yemen, because Yemenis were sending drones to Expo Dubai. Last year, they were like, if you don't move out, we're going to bomb the Expo. And the UAE was like, no, stop. We don't. They were bombing the airports with small armed drones at the time when the UAE, Saudi Arabia, America, France, Italy, the UK were all bombing civilians in Yemen. Yemenis, every drone that was sent by Ansarullah has never killed one civilian, not even one, because they are so rich in culture and respect to a point that they say the Saudis are not our friends, they are our family members. We're one people. We have a problem with the Saudi regime. We're not going to kill Saudi civilians. That's why if you talk to Saudi civilians, they tell you that we're not afraid of Ansarullah. We're not afraid of Yemenis. If there's a drone in the air, we know that they're not going to bomb civilians. But that cannot be said about the Saudis in Yemen. I mean, the horrific bombs that were tested on the Yemenis. You could Google search what was it called? It's a mountain, Faj'atan. Faj'atan. That's F-A-J, Atan, A-T-T-A-N. Faj'atan mountain in, I think it was in Sa'da, not in Sana'a, if I'm mistaken, but it's called the Faj'atan mountain, where small nuclear weapons were tested on the Yemenis. Small nuclear weapons, new technology was tested that basically it's annihilated an entire mountain. If you see the footage of the bombs falling and what happened next, it is beyond what a human can imagine. This is just an example of how the West and the mainstream media and certain regional media supported by regimes who are puppets in the hands of imperialism operate. They throw in fake news at the people, and people don't know. When you don't know, you're just ignorant about something, just say, maybe that's right. Oh, I feel so sorry for them. You feel so sorry? More than 4 Yemeni Americans were killed by bombs made in the United States of America, dropped by Saudis on the head of Yemenis, and you still think that, oh, I'm so sorry for them? Why did the media not show? Yes, that's Faj'atan explosion. There's one where you see, there's one video that's horrific. I cannot watch it. I was able to watch it before, but after the August 4, 2020 Beirut explosion, I cannot watch any explosion anymore. It's too traumatic for me. But there's one video of an explosion where you see colors that you didn't even know existed on planet Earth in that explosion. Bright light colors. And then what happened in the shock waves after? My God. And that's what Saudis did. That's not the hands of Ansarullah. That's the hands of Mohammed bin Salman.
Crazy stuff. Crazy. That's why it's important to defend the Yemeni people in their struggle against Saudi aggression and war and Zionism and imperialism, and it's all connected at the end of the day. And when we start lift from the bottom up, Yemen is one of the most impoverished countries, not only in the Middle East, but in the world. And it's important to support from the bottom up.
And it's the richest in resources only if they leave it alone and let it be.
Right. Exactly. It's just like you said, key geopolitical area, a tremendous wealth of resources, amazing history and culture. And there's so much in Yemen that the Saudis want to control. And it's just really a shame what's really going on. And I think so many of these axis of resistance movements are fighting not only a battle on the ground, but also a media war, which I think is the biggest component. I think the biggest difference today of hybrid war compared to maybe 20, 30 years ago is media and propaganda. These puppet masters and magicians in Hollywood, which is run by a lot of Zionists, they are able to brand, in particular,
and
any
a relative
movement.
Truth for them, as if truth has many faces. It just has one face. There's a truth. There's a fact that happened. There's no truth that you could say that's according to your values. No, There's something that has happened. You can't change it. You can't put a dress on it and say it's a woman if it's not.
Yep.
I'm sorry I had to say that.
Yeah.
But I
No,
mean,
it's true.
actually, no,
I
I'm
mean,
not sorry.
postmodernism and relativism.
If it walks like a duck, what do you expect?
Yeah.
But the parallel universe that these people live in, or make the parallel universe that they're making the Western people live in, is beyond my understanding. Because look at what's happening in Europe right now. The people are going through winter without heat. Why? Because the US decided that should happen. They have no bones to stand in the face of the US destroying what's left of the European economy. Why? Why is that happening? Bring me a European and ask him, why is that happening? He's not going to be able to answer.
Yeah, most definitely. And Franny French agrees with you. Truth has just one face. Quotable. Clip that. Yeah, amazing quote. Marwa, I know you do have to head out, and I have to head out as well. Any final thoughts from you about your show, the work that you do, the Axis of Resistance, or anything you want to comment? What are some projects you're working on now?
Yes. First of all, I want to thank you for the opportunity that you gave me to be on Unmasked Imperialism, and it's an honor to actually know you. And I wish we didn't have that time difference, because I really wanted to have you on my show, but it would be like
the sun is just coming up right now, if you can see.
I saw that, but I have my show on PressTV. We are working on episode 189 this week, and it's going to be about the Netanyahu interview with Al Arabiya, which is a Saudi channel, and how that's just phase one of the normalization with the Saudi regime. And I'm also working on a new project. This is the first that anyone has heard about, with PressTV as well. I'm going to say more when it's time to say more, but it's a new, very interesting project that I was hoping to start at the beginning of next year. Inshallah, maybe maybe we can start it in February if we finish the graphics and all the artistic stuff related to it. And it would be parallel to MidEaStream, something not similar, but in the sense of needed, because we do have to put truth up there and for the people to see. And aside from that, I'm working on a research paper about the banking problem in Lebanon that I'm hopefully going to publish for the Arab Contemporary magazine, and I'm also trying to work closely with media, anti-imperialist media from all over the world. We're trying to get connected. Hence why I work with the Global Gathering in support of the choice of resistance. We have actually an upcoming very, very important conference in Syria. It's supposed to take place in March 2023, maybe end of February, beginning of March 2023. It's going to be about sanctions against everyone, but specifically Syria. But we're going to have a lot of people from everywhere. We're going to have people from Cuba, from Venezuela, from I think from Ecuador.
Man, I want to go.
West. That would be amazing if you can make it. We're going to be doing it in Damascus, the Global Gathering in support of the choice of resistance, and hopefully it's going to gain a bit of media attention, because if we don't do it, no one else will do it for us. We, the people of this region, have to stand up and reclaim our right, because we deserve it. It's ours, and it's about time the Americans go back to their own borders. That's what I just wanted to say. Thank you for having me. Have a great, great day. And
how can people follow you?
Wish peace upon everyone in these very hard times. But I mean, it is what it is. But people can follow me on Twitter. I'm always on Twitter. I try to be as much as possible on Telegram. On Twitter, I am at Marwa _Osman. And on Telegram, I am Marwa Osman the MidEaStream, the name of my show. I have my YouTube channel as well, Marwa Osman. I try to put the MidEaStream there. I'm still haven't been banned by YouTube, but I tread like lightly, because
treading waters.
Someday I will wake up. Yes, exactly. Because I know I will wake up and not find my channel someday. I'm okay with it. Facebook has already removed my page, which I made in 2007 without any without any notification. As I just woke up, I couldn't actually get into my Facebook, so Facebook is gone. But mainly Twitter and Telegram and YouTube. And please do watch my show and comment. I want to see your feedback to learn what I should do better. And also, if you have any questions, I'm always ready to answer. But please be patient, because I can only see the notifications on weekends when I have a couple of hours free.
For sure. No, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that. Your show is fantastic. Everybody, please check out MidEaStream, and please check out Marwa's channel. Link is in the description. Tremendous show on PressTV. Amazing work. Political commentator and analyst on matters of politics, economic, and security. Proud mother of 3, professor. Amazing, amazing stuff. Thank you so much, Marwa. We'll be in touch. I'd love to go out there one day, either Lebanon or Syria or free liberated Palestine someday, hopefully, or Iran, or we'll figure it out. I'd love to go to one of those conferences one day. That sounds amazing. And I really appreciate your work. Everybody go show her some love on Twitter, YouTube, and Telegram. Peace out, everybody. Have a great weekend. As you can see, my face is disappearing as the sun is coming up. So thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. Have a great day. Take care, everybody. Bye.
بحجم تحديك فالعار يلطخ ماضيك ما أنت بحجم تحديك فالعار يلطخ ماضيك وبنادق أبطال تحكي كلا كلا أمريكا ما أنت بحجم تحديك فالعار يلطخ ماضيك وبنادق أبطال تحكي كلا كلا أمريكا بالأصفر لونا النار وزرعنا بالجرد الغارة كلا كلا أمريكا والأحمر شريان ثار والنار لهيب يكويك كلا كلا أمريكا بالأصفر لونا النار وزرعنا بالجرد الغارة والأحمر شريان ثار والنار لهيب يكويك كلا كلا أمريكا السيد أصدق أنداء قد وعد بالنصر وجاء كلا كلا أمريكا ووهبنا جسدا ودماء لنكسر سطوة أمريكا كلا كلا أمريكا السيد أصدق أنداء قد وعد بالنصر وجاء ووهبنا جسدا ودماء لنكسر سطوة أمريكا كلا كلا أمريكا ما أنت بحجم